Yeah, welcome everyone. Well, not so much today.
Oh.
Okay. Mein Name ist Matthias. Ja, wir hatten vor last week there was our IO Extended event in Hamburg, in the Google office Hamburg. I don't know, do you know the IO? The Google I/O, a big conference from Google in San Francisco. Every year there is a conference with around about 5,000, 6,000 people. And yeah, there in San Francisco they present new technologies, APIs, Android versions, and so on. And we did an event in Hamburg in the Google office. We did a small hackathon and live streamed the event from San Francisco. Yeah, and now I want just to show some photos from Hamburg. That's the entry. And our logo. We did it together with the GDG Hamburg. It was a cooperation. And yeah, that was a room where we did our hackathon. Some guys programmed something for Google TV. Yeah, you can see the Google TV. Some guys did App Engine. Another one, some other guys did Android.
Someone tried.
I tried the drivers that came as Android, yes. But it didn't work. No. Yeah, well, the result was that it didn't work.
Yeah, there was a session if you go out, I don't know, I haven't seen it yet. Maybe later.
Yeah. During the hackathon we did a hangout with some other locations in Germany. For example, Berlin. They did also a hackathon and a whole IO Extended event. Yeah. I can see Björn. Yeah, and later, that was our hackathon, and later we went to another room where we watched the keynote, the live stream from San Francisco. And before that we had a small Ignite session where people could show what they've done. Sven gar nicht hier.
Yeah.
He has a pretty cool project. He's built a small car with an Arduino and a phone on it, and he can control it via Wi-Fi and another Android phone. Yeah, to eat. And for the live stream there was, yeah, the toilets. You can see some Space Invaders here in the Google office.
Toilet.
In the toilet of the Google office. Yeah, and after the keynote, I hope now comes the right picture. Yes, there are popcorn too.
Only sweet popcorn.
Yeah, we were around about 68 people there.
Roundabout, it was exactly 68
Okay. Yeah, there we watched the live stream. And after the live stream, we went up to some smaller rooms where some people could also watch some smaller sessions to some specific topics. Also live streamed from San Francisco. And this is one of the small rooms called Voxel. I think you can see why it's called so. Yeah, and that's the Android room. Pretty cool, I think. With some Android lights up there. Yeah, and I don't know, maybe someone remembers this. Stefan Keuchel, Google employee, working in Hamburg, was in Bremen and did this with our Stadtmusikern.
Bless.
And yeah, we went up to his office and we did this.
We wanted to do some revenge, but he was still working. Yeah. So he had to show it to us and these pictures, what we did. Not that cool revenge, but we did something at least.
Yeah, and here a small recap of the I.O. What new technologies, APIs and updates Google launched. First, the Chrome part. Chrome is out of beta on Android now and now also on iOS. Don't know, some iOS users? Good. Good. Yeah, Chrome, I don't know. Do you remember some other big Chrome features they announced?
No, they just showed what you can do with Chrome over several devices. I don't think there's
but that's nothing new, I think. Okay. Cloud, there are more new things. Google App Engine got a major update to 1.70. Steve, do you know more about it?
No, I haven't checked the new things, but it's nothing that great, I think. One thing, I don't know. I haven't checked it yet. I know the Drive things.
Okay, yeah, the Drive SDK got an update to 2.0, and one feature in 2.0 here
Android integration
is officially you can use it on mobile.
Yes.
So I think you couldn't.
There was a way to use the Drive SDK on Android, but it was a bit dirty. You had to use some cool API for that, I think, something about the docs API.
Yes, and exactly, and the REST API, and you had to write it all on your own. HTTP.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, and the new big thing is the compute engine. You can rent complete cores, complete virtual machines from Google with Linux on it, and you can do whatever you think. It's, I think it's especially for big computing things. They showed a demo calculating genomes, and they started with one core calculating the genome, and then while it was running, they pushed it up to 700,000 cores, and then it was just running. So when you have some ideas and need big computing power, there you go.
It's pretty expensive.
I think you have to buy 4 cores with 1 cent per hour, and if you go up to 10,000 cores, you are paying pretty much. So I don't think the student can buy this.
Next, Google Plus. They launched a tablet. They launched some tablet versions for tablet PCs, for the Android tablet and iOS 2. Yeah, and then new big thing, Google Plus got this events. I think it's pretty nice, but still buggy. Yeah, then the history API. Don't know if someone can say something about it. I haven't looked into it.
Yes, maybe next time.
Yeah, and what I will definitely use in the future is a mobile SDK for Google+. You can, with this SDK, you can integrate Google+ completely into your application. For example, you can comment from within your application, post new comments. You can post one or share from your own application. And yeah, Android, some major app updates, for example Chrome or Google+, Maps, and so on. And yeah,
They
4.1 Jelly Bean.
also launched a YouTube view and a YouTube fragment and a YouTube activity plan.
Okay, cool.
So you can now integrate YouTube videos directly in your app.
Okay.
It's already in action, not sure.
It's not needed. Yeah, and the big update was 4.1 Jelly Bean. And someone wants to try Jelly Bean out, you can do it here. Just ask me. And yeah, Project Glass was falling from the sky. It was pretty cool, I think. They put some guys with Google Glass. Do you know Google Glass? The goggles from Google with Android on it. And
Is it Android?
Yes, it's
Okay.
Android. They put some guys with this Google on it up to a Zeppelin.
I think it's
Zeppelin, right above the convention center, and started hangouts with these guys, seeing what they see from the goggles. Yeah, and then these guys jumped out of the Zeppelin right to the building, and they live streamed this directly to the hangout. And then they landed on the building, on the roof. Yeah, hang out on air. From there on, some guys on mountain bikes, also with Project Glass, and in the hangout, then drive from the roof down to the side, and there the guy was climbing down the building on the side, and there he met another biker, and the biker drove through the crowd right to the stage. Yeah. It was pretty cool, and all that you could follow live in the hangout. Yeah, it was pretty cool, but I think you have to see the video for. Yeah, and then our next event, just 2 days after, was a barbecue in the Hackerspace Bremen, where we wanted to combine all the user groups from Bremen. And there, you have some photos too. Yeah, that's the sign of the Hackerspace. There, head of barbecue. Steve.
Yeah. That's me. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's something, I think, Google launched something a few days before the big event, and I think it's
Pretty big step.
pretty big step, but it's an untergegangen.
Yeah, they haven't announced it on the I.O. I thought they did, but they haven't.
No, I haven't. Yeah. The idea is to live stream 24/7 all over the world, the program specifically for developers. Yeah, what will stream there? I think already known there are the office hours, Google office hours, where you can directly ask Google developers when you have some problems, or they will stream tutorials, workshops, how to work with the Google APIs. Right now there aren't 24/7 programs, but I think they will go on with this and will really deliver a roundabout program.
I think the main idea with this live thing is that they want to constantly show developers some content about several technologies. So we have the possibility to stream some content of our own, but we have to tell them that, for example, we have a pretty cool topic here, or someone from Google just has a talk or something, and it's possible for us to tell them, hey, don't you want to stream this on Google Live? So if you like, you can watch this. It's kind of a TV program.
It's not all live.
Yeah, not all, but a lot.
Like right now it's not all live, but yeah, a lot of this will be. That's the idea about this. I think they started at Google I/O because sometimes between sessions they asked, for example, I go from Stuttgart or some other guys how the I/O is and so on, and I think this was the Google Live stream.
They interviewed them.
Yeah, they interviewed them, and I think it was streamed over Google Live. I don't know. Just check it out. I think it's pretty cool. A pretty cool, yeah, program. Maybe you find some office hours or some other topics you're interested in, and on the site you can see what topics will be in the next days or so.
Yeah. And then again, our sponsors. Yeah, Best Western Hotels Post for being here. Thanks a lot. And Stalut, right there, for putting some flyers and recording this whole thing. And Team Neuster will help us with some locations, and in the future will sponsor us some t-shirts.
Yeah.
Nice. Good time. Yeah.
Maybe next regular stable.
Our next meeting is August the 6th. Yeah. We don't have a program for this right now.
If you're interested in doing a talk or something, you know some Google technology or something, it must be a Google technology, could also be something, some topic that's only related to Google also. For example, we had Node.js, which uses the V8 engine of Google, so it was kind of a Google technology. So if you have anything, just ask us, and it will be no problem to make a speech here. No, you didn't just write their I/O sessions after.
Yeah,
We started and we thought, okay, we could do an I/O after you, and we never did from last year. So maybe we can do it this year, but yeah.
Yeah. Last year the idea was to watch the keynote.
Yeah.
But now I think a lot of people have seen the keynote, and now we could watch some specific sessions. For example, some sessions about Android. What's new on that?
Android or Arduino. Perhaps Sven can show us his car. He must be ready on this day.
Wann muss abgehen?
23. Juli. Also,
Yeah, that would be a great topic for next week. Just ask him.
Yeah,
We will also have a presentation. Or me, or
I will.
Okay, then would you guys be interested in an afternoon, for example, in the hackerspace?
Yeah, the hackerspace. I don't know if anybody. Some of you were at the barbecue. We have there some meeting rooms where we could watch this for 15, 16 people. I think we would fit in there. So maybe if you're interested, just tell us on the main list, and we'll be on it and make the event happen.
Maybe we should do a poll.
Yeah, when there are enough interested people, we could do it too. But
Also, Google was interested.
First the doodle who's interested, and afterwards what session. Interested.
okay, but what's up today? Today on 9th, breakfast table, by the way. We'll have a talk by Stefan about Android dev tips. Can you read yourself? And after that, we will have a small Ignite session.
But it's not only a Ignite session, because I will show some API practices with fragments and loaders.
Okay.
Okay. And after Björn told us what he wants to tell us, we can do some other apps if you're interested. So if you wrote an app or you have a project or something, you could tell us. I think we have pretty much now. Yeah. No, we have time until 11 o'clock. So.
And Steve wrote a little project, the Hackerspace Open Header.
Just if you're interested. Only if you're interested. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. After that, we can do networking, discuss things, whatever. Yeah. Thank you.
One thing you forgot. At the Google I/O we had Google Drive for for one new platform, but not for the port one. They showed that Google Drive will be released for iOS, but not for Linux.
Yeah.
And he said, now we have Google Drive on all platforms. And
Yeah.
I thought, what? Linux? Okay.
Yeah.
And
just a small hint. Last week and today I got asked if we have a public repository with slides and projects.
there we
Every meeting I point to this.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Some
Questions?
questions. Yeah. Then a little break, I think, before
5 minutes and
Stefan
then
will start.
Stefan will start.
Okay, so hello, welcome to GDG Bremen. My name is Stefan and I'll be having a short to relatively long talk on Android dev tips.
I see a one. I see a one.
I see, yeah.
You will do some other talks.
So I put the one in hoping that other people will also contribute so we can have more developer tips in the future. But yeah, it's a good observation. So my talk today is about error reporting, but I just wrote something there that would catch your eye. So catch runtime exceptions and crash reports to remain user friendly. I don't know how many of you guys are aware of Android or have developed programs with Android here. Can you raise your hand, please? Okay, so a good number of you will understand what I'm talking about, but the others will be a good crash course. Wow! That's something we don't need. And yeah, if I go too fast or skip some more basic stuff, then feel free to interrupt me and say, I don't understand or something. Okay, so I'm also like just an amateur developer. I don't do this professionally, so there are also some things that I might forget or interpret wrong, so let me know if I make some mistakes. Let's check out the presentation. We're going to talk today about a problem that Android developers usually have. We'll look at solutions that I found for this problem, and then we'll look at error reporting, which is the core of the presentation. And yeah, we'll do some code. Actually, there'll be a lot of code examples, so most of the presentation will be around here, implementation, that's more like 50%. And the rest are just some introductions. Okay, let's get to it. What is the problem? I guess this picture speaks for itself. If you ever had an Android phone and at some point, some application, whatever it is, gives you an error like this, there's nothing much you can do apart for clicking the button for close. That's something that us developers, we don't like when that happens to our app, and the user definitely doesn't like it. So, what can we do about this problem? But first of all, what are the reasons for this problem? What do you think? Given in mind that we have good developers, a more general level. So I said, first of all, inflexible programming, to put it mildly. So when someone programs and just assumes the internet is always reachable, or there's always a camera, or there's always GPS, and then tries to access this in Android, this will happen. So that's one of the reasons. I call it inflexible. It can also be careless programming. One must always not make too many assumptions. Then SDK level might be incompatible. Can everyone see the grade? Is it okay? In the back? Alright. Feel free to move to the front, there's more space.
I don't find it.
So the Android mid SDK version, which you declare in your manifest, and the project target, which you declare when building, are very important because the application then assumes a certain SDK level is there and might try to access some APIs, which, if installed on a device by some reason that doesn't have it, will cause a crash. That's pretty basic. Then, this has happened to me, that's why I put it down, configuration change unhandled. It's very easy to assume once you have a phone like this that, okay, the only configuration change is when you flip it upside down or turn it upside down, but actually on phones with a keyboard, if you pop out the keyboard, the configuration change happens, and depending on your application and on the operating system, the same thing might happen when an orientation change happens, which means the application will die and be restarted again. So if the application is doing something, then, and the configuration change happens which is not handled, then when it dies it might cause an error because you're leaving some database opened or some resources. Then of course we shouldn't forget about Android problems. The Android operating system has developed very quickly, jumped from version 1 until version 4 within 3 years, not 4 if I'm not mistaken. So there are still some buggy APIs and there will still be some, but you guys are working on it. This is mostly the problem that you don't see until someone reports it to you. And of course, hardware problems. There are millions of devices, and most of them say they do some stuff, and not all of them do. So that's also a problem that you won't know about unless it happens on your phone, which you're testing. If you have one, unless you're testing on an emulator. There are also other problems, but these are some of the reasons. Okay, what are the solutions? What can we do to not have crash reports in front of the user? First, it's the simplest, of course, program better. That's what my boss always says, but that's something you cannot solve any problems with. I mean, we program as best as we can, but then it's all about testing.
You have to know what to program better on Android. So you
have to know
amateurs, you're not able to know anything, everything. Everything.
Right. So the second would be test it. again and test it again. But of course, in order to test all possible devices and all possible versions of Android that you want to support, you need quite a lot of devices. Maybe something like these guys do, like Animoca. This was a picture I took from their website. They said, this is the biggest table that can fit all of our devices, but not all. So unless you're in this position where you can really test on hundreds of devices, then I don't think this is also a very good solution. Let's look at other solutions. Pay others to test it before you launch. Well, if you have the money, you can use, I researched 3 options. This app demo store is basically a service where you can upload your app, and they say they test it and do some building, and they build it for different OSs, different versions of Android, and then they give you bug reports. TestDroid Cloud is actually a company which is present at DroidCon. If you guys remember, they also have a few devices in the suitcase. They also say we have testing room with, I don't know, 100 devices plugged into a huge USB hub, and we just upload the application and simulate clicks on it. So they also can do that. I guess the most professional and the most expensive one is Vodafone Online Test and Verification, formerly called Perfecto Mobile before Vodafone bought them. All these services cost money, and they have a bunch of devices and they do testing for different versions, but they're not going to cover it all, and they cost money.
I was talking with the Vodafone guy at DroidCon, and he told me that for developers this service would be free.
For Vodafone developers?
For the Vodafone developers. So if I'm a company, I have to pay for it, and if I'm just a developer, you
probably have to pay the developer fee, right? Just like the Google developer fee and then Vodafone developer fee. In order to publish.
Okay, I have to be a Vodafone developer.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure about details, but
Okay.
I think they want to get you into their app market. All right. What about the fourth solution? And that's what's coming closer to the point of my talk: built-in error reporting. What this means is basically you build in code with your app, you launch it, and then when other errors happen, it comes back to you. There is Google error reporting, so it's already there, and you can do it yourself. I will focus on this last point, the do-yourself error reporting. First of all, to understand how it works, and then when you choose an error reporting tool, you will have a bit more knowledge, knowing if it fits you or not. So, Google error reporting looks like this. It's available since Froyo, Android 2.2. And reports come into your market account. You can see here on the really bad screenshot, you get error types and how many of them, 232 reports, 16 reports a week. Reports come into your market account, and usually they get triggered by this sort of dialogue. The application is launched, you get here the package name, please try again, force close or report. So what does the user have to do in order to get something like this? They have to click report. But they don't. I mean, looking at Stack Overflow and other forums, people always complain that the Android market actually provides error reports very late, and sometimes doesn't provide them at all. So people are always asking for alternatives. And the last and red point is that users don't report. We'll see this as we go on. It just happens that clicking force close is easier than clicking report and sending an email or doing some other things. Alright, so do-it-yourself error reporting. Even though Google provides a lot of this platform, and basically you have it all there in your Android, what's called Google Play Store now, people came up with quite a lot of different tools for error reporting. Actually, there are so many of them, I only listed a few. The biggest and most important one is ACRA, Application Crash Reporting for Android, which is it's an open source project. It's free and it's already in version 4, so I guess it's has the highest community. It's pretty cool. It basically provides you a library which you integrate inside your application with a bunch of lines of Java code. And what it does is it sends an HTTP post to a Google spreadsheet with details about the crash. The cool thing about Google spreadsheets is that they acquire information, so they become like a database, and some people have actually came up with some way to write spreadsheet. I'm not sure exactly how this works, but basically the posts are gathered and then turned into graphs, so very cool, like custom-made reporting, and it's all for free. Then there's an Android error reporter. You guys can Google the names, by the way, and you'll find them as the first hit. It's also a free library. The same thing as Accra, just integrated into your application with a bunch of Java lines, and it automatically sends HTTP posts. Remote stack trace is exactly the same. I guess it's a bit raw, just sends you the stack trace. Then Android log collector is exactly what it says. So it's actually an APK which kind of streams the log from your device to whatever server you ask it to. Could be cool if the device is not connected to your USB stick, for example. And then there are online services. So there's AppHands, BugSense, Hockey App, Criticism, etc. I just listed a few, but they're all about the same. They have a freemium version, apart from Hockey App, where you can register your application and you have a limited amount of devices that actually can register on it, and then you have to pay. So maybe, I don't know, 3 devices or 2 different operating systems that you get it for free, and then from then on you have to pay per month. And what these services do is they gather the crashes online on their servers for you and create the graphs and all the statistics for you. So you don't have to do it yourself, but you have to pay for it. I think the coolest that I've seen so far is BugSense, because it's the newest and they're a bit more lenient on their quotas. So they give you more in the beginning for free. But I'm not going to go into detail, just listing them for you guys to search, because what we want to do is do it ourselves. So the point of my talk is to show you how this works, and to get you interested and see which one of these services or libs actually does it better for you. So how is it done? How does it work? First you catch an exception. It's pretty simple. Then you show user a nice dialog, not saying application has crashed, force close. No one wants to see that. Then you ask the user to send an error report, whether through the internet or through an email.
What would be a nice dialogue? Just, oh, whoops, something bad happened, or?
It depends on you. I mean, you can do whatever you want. I think exactly to the point, there's this great book called About Face. It's now at version 3.0. It's all about user interface design. It's from O'Reilly. And I read this book maybe 5 years ago, where it's version 2.0. The main point they had is, when you have an error, when you present the user with an error, the user doesn't want to see, oh, an error has passed, shit, what do I do now? The user wants to see a solution. So you have to present the user with a solution or something to make the error seem, I don't know, seem a bit better. Not, application has failed and there's an OK body. That doesn't help. The user wants to see something positive whenever an error occurs. But enough digressing. The fourth step is analyze the report, and this is basically done on the server side, where these HTTP requests or these emails are stored. Okay, let's get into details. How do we catch an exception? Java has this cool thing called an uncaught exception handler, and this is found in Java lang thread uncaught exception handler. So what you can do is you can create a class which implements this interface and then override the method uncaught exception. So basically what happens is you have to register your custom exception handler with your application or your activity, and whenever there's an exception which is not caught by a try-catch block, it will be caught by this class. So you have the last say in what happens with this exception at the end, before the user sees it. Android made it very easy to integrate this. For example, in my application, so this is an Android application, not an activity, that extends application on create. After a super call, I just do a thread set default on caught exception handler with my class from here.
There's a difference between application and activity.
So inside an Android application, you have different activities, which are different views for the user, but the application is like, what do you call that? It's the overall process. It's a singleton. So there's only one application, and that basically has, it's always, you can call it from your activity, so it could be kind of like the storage space for your global variables. That's usually the application.
Okay.
It has its own life cycle, different from the activities. First the application starts, and then you can do a bit of setting up in the background, and then you start at different activities.
Okay.
Well, also the pre-shared preferences in the activity, in the application, stored in this class.
Okay. You have to mention the application in the manifest.
Yes, exactly. You have to mention this
how,
tag where you can define your own application class.
How does it work? Like?
The activities are defined
Underneath the application.
Exactly, yeah.
Underneath the application tag. It's
Okay.
there.
So the application tag is basically, the application tag corresponds to the application class, and it's basically your process under which things run. It's a bit less than a process, but kind of like a process. But that's when you refer to your application, that's the highest point in your code that you can see. And that's why it's very useful, as Björn said, to store global variables and references. So you can actually do this in an activity. Oops. You can actually do this in an activity and not in an application on create. But then, if you have this call, then the uncaught exception handler would only be set for this activity. So what I want to do is set it for all activities inside my application. That's why I do it in an application. Another version of this call is called set uncaught exception handler and not default. So if you leave the default out, then it actually only sets this exception handler for that particular thread. So if you do asynchronous work in a different thread and there an exception happens, and for that thread the exception handler has not been set, then it will not be caught. So by putting this call in the application, then it's valid for all my activities inside my program. And by putting it, by calling set default uncaught exception handler, then it's also valid for all threads. So basically, every time an error or an exception is raised that is not caught by anything else, it will be caught by my custom exception handler. Unless the error happens here in super on create, which is just a bit too soon. All right. So that was the first step. What did we say? We had catch exception, so user a nice dialog. So show the user a nice dialog. This is the dialog that I made. It's not very nice, but at least it serves my purpose. I mean, you can create here anything you want. You can create a new activity. You can create a fancy image. I opted for an alert dialog with 2 buttons and a nice text, which kind of leads to the positive idea that if users submit crash reports, then the bugs will get fixed. So they have an option of saying yes, no. It's more than just force bugs. Not much to see here. Implementation is simple. For those who are aware of alert dialog, just create an alert dialog with an alert dialog builder. And call this alert. You set the message, what you've seen before. Set the title, which is an application name, and the 2 buttons. First is the positive button called yes, and when can everyone see here? It says
send report.
Send report then die. Oh, that's pretty bad. No one can see that. Okay. So basically, I register this click listener with the button. So whenever someone clicks the yes button, then I send the report. And then when someone clicks the no button, I just exit. It's died. So set negative button called no, and with an on-click listener that just died. And then I show the alert. That's basically just an example for you guys. You can do something else here. You can create a nice view with images, but just to give you a bit of code from every part, if you actually put this together, it should work. As an example. Okay, all looks nice, but there are problems with this. And what are the problems? When a crash happens in an activity, Android actually sets some flags, and this activity will finish. You cannot help it, you cannot change it, you cannot alter it. The activity will have to finish. So you learn this after playing around with it, trying different things and seeing that it doesn't work. And then you reach something else. The application is actually also set to finish. So the whole program, basically, the application, all its activities, will close whenever an on-call exception happens. This is done by the Android system in order to prevent any information leaks or memory, because if there's an on-call exception, it should be treated as something important. So how do we show an alert dialog if we have no activity to link it to? You cannot show this alert dialog that I've showed you here without this. This here is an activity or a context. So we need an activity, that the activity dies, the whole application dies. So what we have to do, this is another point, sorry. First of all, we have to make sure that the activity and the application die. If we catch the exception and we do something with it, but we don't kill the activity and the application, the system might hang. And it happens that you see a black screen and you don't know why, because the main thread dies, but the others don't, and they just hang there. So you have to clean up. If you catch the uncaught exception, you have to make sure you clean up. One way to do it is to get the default uncaught exception handler from the thread. This is before you set your own. And then once you're done with your error handling, then throw this uncaught exception. It says here, raises standard error dialog. So actually, by calling default handler uncaught exception, we get the close dialog again. So we can catch it, look at the exception, but if we throw it further back to the default handler, it will show this force close dialog. That's not what we want. So the workaround for this, and this is something that on the Stack Overflow and Android developers mailing list, all the Google developers say don't do, but they don't provide an alternative for now. So this is the simple Java way of killing it: process, kill process, my process ID, and then system exit. It says here dirty, but it shows no dialog. And make sure to clean activity or app state before this. So this is what I do. It's not recommended by the Google developers, but they don't give any alternative either. So if you guys find an alternative which is considered okay and clean, let me know. All right. So basically what we said is we want to catch the exception and put it into an error report, but at the same time we must make sure that the activity and the application dies, because otherwise bad things may happen. So the way I do it is I do this, process, kill process, system exit, but before I do this I must make sure that somehow I manage to get the information from this exception and send it further to a server, somewhere where it can be processed. So, the idea how to do this caused me many hours of searching on Stack Overflow, is you need a different activity. Okay, easier said than done, but if your application dies, then you cannot start a new activity. So what does that mean? It you need another activity, you need another application, so another process. So this goes into the depths of Android threads and processes. In order to get a different activity working in a different process, then we have to play around with the manifest in the following way. Here's the example that you asked about earlier. Everything happens under the application tag. This is the application called Compact JDC application in my example. This Android name is some sort of namespace for the process that the application runs under. The first activity, called main activity, runs under the same namespace under the application. But the third activity, the second activity, COM package crash report activity, runs under a different process. So if I don't mention Android process here as an argument, it automatically takes this one, defined under name. But if I do mention it and I give it a different value, in this case, COM package crash report process is different than COM package ABC application, then this activity will automatically start a different process. And a different Android process means, as you know, different user. So basically, if you look on your phone, you have two running processes. If they both run at the same time. This is a completely different one, a different application. Another thing that you have to add is task affinity, a different task name. I didn't understand the details of this very much, but basically it tells you that this activity runs under a different task, which also means a different process, but you have to mention this too. So basically here in the task affinity I can write any name, but it has to differ from this one. Because this is the default for all the activities under my application. I know it's a bit more complicated. Everyone understand? Did anyone understand? So basically, the idea was simple. I need an activity to show my user a nice dialog, but I cannot use the one that I already have because it has to be killed, and I cannot use the application either. So I need a new activity, in this case, a crash report activity. That's the name I gave it. And I need to set these two attributes in order for it to run in a different process. And only if it runs in a different process will the user see it. Will it ever be seen on the device? And the way that's done is through intents. I'll show you next. So let's take a look at the uncaught exception handler that we defined. Where was it? A few slides back. Here. So I'm in the custom exception handler class, and I'm going to show the implementation of this method, uncaught exception. Alright, so let's take a look at the implementation of uncaught exception. Basically, whenever an exception happens, I catch it in this method. I have the thread where it happened, and the E is the exception. It's a throwable. So it was thrown, and I caught it here, and I'm going to process it, and then kill the process. So, the way to get the stack trace is quite easy. You use the Android log class, and with this method, you basically pack the stack trace into the report string. Here it says, if the exception was thrown in a background thread inside an asynchronous task, then the actual exception can be found with get cause. So you can actually get the cause, it's another throwable found inside my E exception. And if I have something there, then I can get it. And you sometimes probably have seen this if you look in your DDMS view, that you have a first, so in the case of an error, first stack trace and then a different one underneath, and that's the cause. So it sometimes has, because it's running in an asynchronous task, so on a different thread, it has two stack traces. One from the main thread and one from the thread where the exception happened. So this is a complete error report. What I do with it is I pack it in an intent. Hope you're familiar with intents. So I create an intent which points to my crash report activity directly. With this intent, I choose to start this activity, I put some baggage or extra inside it, exactly the report that I've gathered up to here. Then I set the flag that this activity will start in a new task. So this tells the Android system that this new activity will need its own task and its own process. And then I just start the activity. Simple as that. There's nothing more I need to do, but when this call is made, start activity, the Android system will know, because of the manifest, that this activity will need its own application, its own process. So it will start on a completely different path. Then I finish my current activity, assuming that I have it. Important, clean up application state. As I said before, it's important here, before you call kill process and exit, that you close any databases you have open, close any file handles you have open, things like this. I do this in my case in my onDestroy in current activity. So that's why by calling finish, everything's cleaned up. And then I exit. Everything clear so far? So basically, I've caught my exception, I've extracted the stack trace from it and its cause, I packed it in an intent and I sent it to a new activity, this crash report activity. And the crash report activity will deal with it. Up to now, the user hasn't seen anything. This all happens in the background. Let's take a look further at the crash report activity. Regular activity. On the onCreate method, I just basically look into the bundle. I look in the intent that started this activity, get the extras, and if I find something there, then I gather the report that was basically sent in the previous, on the previous page. Yeah.
Now in a new process, new activity. Could I go back to the other activity? To start it again or something like that?
Yes, it's an intent.
Yeah, interesting question, because
What do you mean?
the Android system closed the first activity where the exception happened.
Yeah.
So we did an intent to get to this activity, something is shown and you send a report or something. And now you have a button, for example, go back to the application I created.
So the question is, could I start the same activity? No, could I start an activity in my original application?
Yeah.
I think this would only work if the application starts separate, because if you start an activity inside the same application, which is marked to die, it won't work.
Okay, so
it needs to be a different process. The second process has to be defined in the same manifest, so it cannot really say, okay, I have my application, there's an activity inside, it's also belonging to this application. No, it has to be a completely different process, otherwise it won't start. I mean,
well, the application is already died, so you can't go back to your activity platform.
But it hasn't died yet. I make the call before I kill the activity in the application. So when I make the call here, if I start an activity which is registered inside my same application, it will try to start inside the same process. And that won't work because the process is scheduled to be killed. And then it gets killed. Here at the end. So that's why it doesn't work, because first you have to call, then close, sort of say.
So I cannot restart my application from this report activity.
Of course you can. You have to start via new intent.
I don't know.
Because I think that start activity doesn't wait for a result. So we'll start the intent. Current activity will call finished and process the process.
That's a question of concurrency, right?
Yes,
maybe it waits, maybe it doesn't wait, so you don't know which finishes first. And that's dangerous. So I tried it. I tried starting an activity which was, the only difference is what I write in the manifest, right? That's the only difference. If I don't put this different process name there that's scheduled to start a different process, then it doesn't start. I've tried it. because it automatically tries to start under the same process, and the process is scheduled to be killed, so it doesn't work. So it has to be in. I mean, this is all something that we cannot see when we program. Just that one line in manifest makes it a different process when it runs on the device. So this code should be pretty simple. I just extract the report that I sent it in the bundle, and then on start, I show the alert dialog. So this is basically the code that I had earlier about the alert dialog builder. Now you know what this is. This is here. So this is the crash report activity. So the message, I won't write it all because I don't have space. What I choose to do, at least in my case, because I was curious and I wanted to do it fast without setting up a web server, is I send an email. So I register a positive yes button, which when clicked, creates again another intent with the action send to an email with the subject, the report as the body of this email. So basically, this is the report that I've sent that I've caught in my exception handler. I set the email type, also mine type, and yeah, then I start activity again with the title send crash report. And then I die again. So basically, the only role this new activity and this new process actually holds is to ask the user, do you want to send the crash report? And if the user clicks yes, then it already sends it further into the Android system to whoever can receive this intent action send. And there will be an email client, if you have it, who will say, would you like to send it using Gmail or the mail client, other mail clients. And the no button is basically, I said it before, all it does is process, click, process. Everything clear? So once again, the crash report activity, the only role it has is to show the user with a dialog. It can be an image, it can be anything, because it's an activity, it has its own life, you can give it a layout, give it a nice user interface, and give the user the possibility to send you a bug report, a crash report, an error report. It's nice to ask the user, it's nice to inform the user that a crash has occurred and to give the user the power. So it's always good to empower the user. The user must feel that he or she chooses what to do, not you just tell it a bug report has been sent. But it's good to know, okay, I can click yes, I can click no. Another thing with the email is that they can also write something on top. Right? So I was doing this and then suddenly this crash occurred at the top of the email. What I do in the email is actually in this report. I read a lot of information from the device, like everything possible that I can get, model, ID, Android system, SDK, image size, image density, everything possible that I can read from the sensors, the database state and the other application state, and then I send it in the email. I also send it to a web server, but this was just for example. Okay. Step 4, of course, is on the server side. You can these reports can be either an HTTP post or an email, which is the example that I've shown. An HTTP post is probably easier to interpret because you would have a PHP script or something similar sitting on the server side, gathering and maybe putting the information to a database. Or as in the case of Accra, Google spreadsheet that does that. So as I said, server side is a PHP script, and MySQL database, Google spreadsheet, or your inbox. Alright?
You could also create an app engine which can receive
Yes.
emails, so you also put this to database.
You can do whatever you want on the server side, as long as you understand the type of request that you have.
Maybe it's too expensive, possibly.
Of course, the user could write
Base
anything
rights.
to this, say just hello, delete the other things in my My server doesn't know what.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
So when I did the implementation of this error reporting feature with email, while looking at the Stack Overflow comments about users not liking to click report, I thought to myself, well, maybe they also don't like the nice message that I send them, that I give them, and maybe they also not want to click report. So I did extra error reporting just in case, which is something you may choose to do or may choose not to do. So yeah, this is the reason basically. Users don't report when asked to, not all of them. We'll see how bad it gets. What we did is, or what I did is short reporting for Google Analytics. So the app that I was working for already has Google Analytics integrated. It's a US company that develops it basically, and they said we integrate Google Analytics, the user has to take it. If there's internet, we send track page views. If there isn't internet, we don't. That's all. In Germany, people worry more about asking for user permissions. I know that Matze said he asks his users at the beginning, if I'm not wrong, turn on Google Analytics, they all say no, right? Most of them say no. Anyways, in my case, since Google Analytics was there, I decided to take advantage of it. So I did a very simple thing. Every time there's an error being caught by my exception handler, I do a track page view. So basically this is a request, like someone accesses this URL, and this is just something that shows me this is the application name, version, publisher, error, and then error line. For error line, this was something that I was very proud of, but actually it's very simple, so everyone can do it. I just look through the stack trace and figure out exactly the line at which the error happened. So that's just a simple regex. I will show you right here. You compile a pattern, and here in the regular expression, you have beginning of line and then \s, which is some spaces at the beginning of line, and then in the stack trace, the line where the error occurs will actually start with @ so it's very easy. You just look at @ and then your package name, which in my case is com.fuckpumpkins.something. So catch this whole line in the regular expression, and then look through multi-lines. And basically, I get myself a pattern matcher and match the report. The report is a stack trace string. So this report variable includes the whole stack trace, and then I run it against this regular expression and get exactly the line where the error occurred. I take this line and I pack it into my track page view, and just basically call this URL abc/application version/publisher/error/error. Or there should be another slash here. Plus error line. And that's it. So basically this is my extra error reporting. I just make a call to Google Analytics saying error happened at this line. In this app version, in this app. Okay. Let's see how this works. Basically, Google Analytics reports. I don't know if you guys have access to Google Analytics. It's pretty simple. This is an account showing just page views between May 17th and today. And here on the left, I can see basically just is it clear? There's some errors. Basically, it says com.5pumpkins.com of Flipkart activity all stopped, and then the file name in Java 492. So it's very, very useful because I get the exact line. This is line 492, this is line 603. This was called 179 times, so this error happened 179 times, out of which unique is 179, so that was one error per user. I use this in order to see how errors develop over time. For example, this is version 85. I fixed this error since, so if I were to click on this error, which I don't have a slide for, then it will go to 0 somewhere around here. So this is just a simple way of how I track it, because I was too lazy to implement something more complicated, and Google Analytics was already there. And it's very accurate, so very fast. If I open my app now and should do some crash, then within 5 or 10 minutes it will appear here. So it's much faster than the Google Play. Because actually people pay money for this, for Google Analytics. That's why it's much better. So let's take a look, analyze the reports. The application that I targeted was ABCs by 5 Pumpkins. An application which is very old on the market, maybe 3 years. So I took the interval about 6 weeks. The 17th of May is when I uploaded the version with error reporting. So I built in error reporting and Google Analytics, extra error reporting. The users were about 83,000 visits in these 6 weeks, out of which 24,000 unique. So pretty good number of usage. 418 errors in total. These were errors that I saw on Google Analytics. So errors that happened when the user ran into an exception and had internet turned on. There are a few which I guess didn't have internet, but they fall outside. Yeah?
And how much did you get sent to your Plus account? Play account?
I didn't have access to the Play account, but okay. I know that they are sent only weekly, monthly. So I cannot compare that. I can only compare with how many users actually clicked send error report.
I think it's about a day basis now.
Daily? Okay, yeah. That's pretty. No, I actually, I should check and see how many, because I didn't have access to that. That's why I did yeah, my own error report for this. So I had 418 errors altogether in all users which are online. How many do you think out of these errors, and every single user was prompted with a dialogue saying, would you like to send an error report helping the developer improve or fix these bugs in the future?
10.
10 only?
Yeah.
Do I hear more? Alright, it's actually worse. 8 crash reports in total, and 5 emails reporting bugs from people writing on different channels. So, this is pretty staggering and very bad. That's something like less than 1%. It's actually 0.05%. No, 0.5%. Sorry. Yeah, so basically what can we learn from this? Conclusions. Users don't like to report bugs. They hate getting errors, but they really don't like reporting them. It's terrible, and I know I'm guilty of it myself. When I get a crash in my application, I close it and I restart it again. And if I restart again and it doesn't work, then I probably don't use it anymore. But not many applications actually ask you to send error reports and send crash reports, so I try to actually do it now when it happens. So user-driven error reporting is just the tip of the iceberg. You see 8 errors or maybe 12 in total, and there are 400 underneath. So that's not something you can rely on. Automatic crash reports are the safest bet. That would be my encouragement or my advice to you. Of course, the Google version, if it is back up to speed now and it works fast, should be used. But it's also nice to get your own. As I said, I put a lot of information in my crash reports, so I get a lot of like the database state and the state of the variables inside the application, and also some feedback from the user on top also helps. Like, I did this and that, and then suddenly it crashed. That's why I like the user-driven error reporting, but I cannot rely on it. It has to be automatic in order to get the real idea about the errors. And I have to say, looking at analytics and analyzing the errors, it would be the most unusual things that one would see there. I mean, users are really the best quality assurance you can have. Of course, you should not use them for quality assurance. Just in order to test your application, you should test it yourself before. But you'd be amazed how many things, how many errors happen in places that you never thought possible, and how many weaknesses of the system you see when you get these automatic crash reports. That you see some Android things crashing that you cannot help with some configuration. Maybe it's hardware, maybe it's software, you don't know, but they crash, and they crash your application. So this gives you a lot of insight, and it's very good. I think one of the most important advice that I would give is reply to active users. So I wrote a debug report, a crash report once for this Öfi app that tells you the bus schedules, and I saw the guy's email and I wrote him an email, but he never replied. So if you reply to users, this will motivate them. I have 8 users who send me a crash report, so it's not hard to reply to them in the course of 6 weeks. If you do it, if you reply to their emails, even with this, a note saying, actually this bug has been fixed, updated to the newest version, they'll be very thankful and they'll keep using your app. So I guess that's a very important piece of advice. And if they get a reply from you, they feel closer to you, and they might be more inclined to send you another bug report in the future, given that they really don't like it. I think that's it. Yeah, these are my references. And any questions? Yeah?
Do you think the fragmentation of Android versions is one of the biggest problems for the developer and for all these kind of exceptions which occur all the time?
The different versions of Android.
Yeah, if I develop, for example, I'm just developing a Hackerspace app, and I know I can use version I think 2.1 because I'm using cloud device messaging until the newest version. I don't know what kind of errors can occur between those versions, you know, and it's kind of different to test them if you don't have resources for this.
Yeah.
And how big is this problem?
Well, it depends how many versions you want to support, right? The easiest would be to say Android 4.0 and up, right? As you said, cloud device, messaging, I'm not sure, since when did that become available?
2.1.
2.1. You could say you eliminate all the versions before that and support only SDK starting with 8? No, 7 for 2.1. Generally, I would recommend, so I also was faced with some simple features that, like drag and drop, just doesn't work on pre 3.0, and then you just have to go around and either program for a lower SDK or do a switch inside your code where you have solutions for both. So I would say be very careful what you put in your Android Min SDK level there. I cannot say I don't have so much experience with different versions. I think for the applications that I manage, that I've looked at, they mostly already, 2.3 up to 4.0, maybe 40%, and 4.0 another 50%. So very few under 2.3, but there's a lot of space there. I mean, in between gingerbread and ice cream sandwich, it is a big problem, but you can try to make sure when you program that you don't mess with API levels which are dangerous for the SDK level that you're talking about. I mean, that's more or less self-obvious.
It just was one experience I had in the last year or so. I started to develop a single hello world application and said, okay, I want it for every version or so, and had just added some things, and then there became the problems. You had to check. Okay, in this version it doesn't work because I don't know.
Is it not supported?
Yeah, one thing is not supported, and I want to use the action library. Now I have a compat library, that's no problem, but yeah, it's pretty much for developer.
Yes.
Someday. Until 2 point something, this was, I think, lower problem, but after with Honeycomb, they'll come, the fragments came, and the additional UIs is more of a problem than many companies think. Android is a huge thing.
Yeah, it's true. And I think what companies do is they set limits and say, if we target a particular group of users, then they're the users with these sort of devices. So I think in the future, it looks now at least, I hope they keep like that. Google is focusing on actually making their APIs robust. That's why they didn't go to Android 5 but just 4.1. So hopefully they will all converge into 4 point something in the next 2-3 years. But you never know that. And that will still be a problem for developers. I think it's pretty clear it's a marketing strategy for both themselves and the producers, because Samsung, HTC, and all the other producers can only benefit if they give you devices which only run Android 2.1 and nothing more, because then you have to switch and buy new ones and then throw that away and buy a new one. So it's all connected with the market. In the end, the only person losing and the only people losing are the developers. So at some point, I guess, we all have to make compromises and say, we support this version and this version. Anything else, no more. Other questions?
Yes. Do you know if you have access to the shared preferences when you're on the different tasks and the different the crash report activity?
It's a good question. I didn't check.
Because you can then tell the user, would you like report errors? And if you say no, then
okay.
you don't report errors in the future, so you don't have to ask them again.
What I know is that what I've done is in the exception handler, I have access to the database, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So aren't you in the same process? So
theoretically, you should.
under the same
but
application.
the crash report activity is in a different process. So
Yeah, but under the same application.
But no, he's right, because you need user input. So you cannot get user input in the same activity that's crashing.
yes. So you have to be in a different process, and I don't know if you have the shared preferences.
That's difficult. I don't know.
Probably it depends on if the process is good or not, because the process and the shared preferences are loaded in the application.
Yes.
And they are in the hashed map, so
That would be an interesting thing to check if the shared preferences in the second process are the same as in the
yeah,
first.
exactly. That's the question.
Yes. I don't know. I did not check this. That's a good point. We should
Yeah.
try it. All right. If there are no more questions,
Do they
then
have a demo code or demo project somewhere?
not yet, but I will provide you. I basically give the custom exception handler class and the crash report activity. There should be.
You could also put it on the Bremen, on our repository if you want to. You don't want to
I want
set up
to.
something.
I want to if you give me access.
Yeah, I will do that.
Sure, of course. That's what I was planning to do, because all these code pieces don't make sense unless you see them together. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
By the way, for Google Analytics, there's now an Android client. So you can see on your Android device what crashes you get.
So we're doing a quick break, short break, 5 minutes or so. And
Yes,
then
but they will
we'll-
start my PC. Dachten wir eigentlich, ja, machen eine Live-Demo, aber ich glaube, ihr kennt die alle. Deswegen gehe ich mal gleich zu den Fragments und Activity Callbacks sowie den Loaders zu. Weil ich fand das ein bisschen oder spannend, einfach weil es neue APIs sind und nicht so viele Leute damit halt die programmiert haben. Und deswegen fand ich es halt spannend, dass man das halt immer auch ein bisschen der Allgemeinheit zeigt. Und Android halt sagt, benutzt das. Ja, benutzt das. Jetzt einmal, wo ist das halt wichtig bei diesen List Fragments und Activity Callbacks? Ganz einfach, wie man hier schon sieht, auf dem Bild haben wir ein Tablet und ein Smartphone. Und beim Tablet haben wir halt die Möglichkeit, mehrere Fragments anzuzeigen, und beim Smartphone eben nicht. Und so haben wir halt hier unser List Fragment und hier typischerweise haben wir halt so ein Detail Fragment, was halt eine Webview sein kann. Bei mir ist es halt ein Detail-Fragment, wo ein bisschen Text und der Titel und der Ort, die Uhrzeit angezeigt wird. Und eben auf dem Smartphone hat man das in zwei verschiedenen Activities getrennt. Die Fragments sind aber wiederum die gleichen. Man muss halt ein bisschen mehr Code schreiben, halt noch eine zweite Activity fürs Smartphone. Genau. Worauf muss man halt achten, wenn man sowas implementiert? Ist einmal, dass das Lit-Fragment eben auf Item-Clicks reagieren muss. Und am besten legen wir uns dafür, um dann mit der Activity zu kommunizieren, ein Interface in dem Fragment an und überschreiben die Methode Public Void on Intent, in der wir halt gucken, ob unsere Activity das Interface implementiert. Und eben diese Methode wird so weit aufgerufen, sobald das Fragment das erste Mal in die Activity angefügt wurde. Ein bisschen Beispielcode dazu von dem Fragment. Wir sehen hier unser On-Article Select Listener, das ist halt unser Interface. Und hier überschreiben wir unsere On-Attach-Methode, wo halt hier unsere Activity zu dem Interface gecastet wird. Und wenn das nicht funktioniert, schmeißen wir halt eine neue Exception, die halt sagt, dass eben unser Implement oder unser Interface nicht implementiert wurde. Ja, dann einmal das Beispielcode zum Details Fragment, was dann wiederum die Details anzeigt. Eines Events bei mir zum Beispiel, werde ich aber gerne nochmal zeigen, wenn ihr könnt. Wir kreieren uns halt eine neue Instanz des Fragments, übergeben dazu dann, hier habe ich jetzt eine URL einfach übergeben und ja, hängen die dann halt als extra an dieses Fragment an und geben das dann zurück. Was an diesem den Vorteil hat, als wer crashed ist, was man sich merken kann, ist, dass wir hier einmal eine Typüberprüfung haben und dass wir hier einmal eine Konstante haben, den wir wiederum, oder eine öffentliche Konstante sogar, so dass wir keine Tippfehler hervorrufen können, wenn wir an Extras etwas dranhängen. Zeichnen. Genau. Unsere Activity würde so aussehen, dass wir einmal hier oben unseren Interface aus der List Fragment implementieren und hier entscheiden wir dann in der On-Article Selected Methode eben, ob wir das Detail Fragment im Layout haben, wenn ja, und überprüfen wir halt noch, ob wir die richtige URL zum Beispiel jetzt in diesem Fall anzeigen. Denn sollte das nicht der Fall sein, müssen wir ein neues Detail Fragment erstellen mit der neuen, weil es die neue URL lädt. Und wenn wir das Detail-Fragment gar nicht im Layout haben, starten wir einen neuen Intent mit der entsprechenden Activity, was dann halt hier entsprechend erzeugt werden müsste, aber ich denke mal, das kennt man so.
Kann ich nicht einfach das aktuelle Fragment, also auf dem Smartphone das aktuelle Fragment austauschen?
Kannst du auch machen, ist aber meistens nicht so schön und
warum ist es nicht so schön?
wie man weil du ja so einen sogenannten Backstack hast, der sich bei Activities automatisch anlegen würde. Bei Fragments müsstest du sagen, fügen wir dieses Fragment noch zum Backstack hinzu.
Ich bin das momentan auch am Überlegen bei der einen App, die Hackers betreffend macht.
Und selbst Google sagt ja, dass es hier 2 Activities sein sollen, also im besten Fall, wo halt eben Activity A, Activity B startet. Was man dazu noch sagen muss, ist, was ich ganz schön finde an dieser Geschichte mit dem Interface, was ein bisschen kompliziert aussieht, weil theoretisch könnte man ja auch in dem Fragment fragen, ob mein zweites Fragment angezeigt wird. Aber ich finde, dass Layout-Geschichten halt in der Activity stattfinden sollten und nicht in dem Fragment. Und deswegen implementiere ich eigentlich jede Kommunikation zwischen Fragments in diese Richtung. Weil dann kann ich immer gut, ich kann es auch im Fragment intern starten, aber eben so, ich finde es so schöner. In dem Beispiel kurz von Google ist es aber nicht immer so, wo ich das zum Beispiel dann mal gemacht habe.
Ich habe gerade, wenn ich jetzt auf einem Tablet bin, da habe ich 2 Fragments und was weiß ich, erst wird das linke Fragment angezeigt und da irgendwie draufgeklickt auf irgendeine List-Element oder so, dann wird das rechte angezeigt. Auf dem Smartphone würde ich dann neue Activity starten, auf dem Tablet nicht. Das heißt, da würde der Backtrace dann auch sowieso verloren gegangen.
Genau. Ich habe das einmal hier implementiert. Das ist ein bisschen. Nee, das ist fast. So, hier habe ich einmal halt mein eines Listener. Das war mein Listener oder mein Interface aus dem Fragment, was halt die Events an der Seite zum Beispiel auf dem Tablet anzeigt. Habe ich hier implementiert. Und genau. Hier gucke ich dann, hole ich mir halt über den Fragment Manager, Find Fragment by ID, eben probiere ich mir das Detailfragment aus dem Layout zu ziehen. Wenn das klappt, also wie hier dann, wenn das klappt, also es sich halt um mein Tablet handelt, gucke ich halt noch, ob das eben, ob der richtige Index angezeigt wird hier, wie die Event-ID, wo der User drauf gedrückt hat. Ist dem nicht so, dann muss ich halt ein neues Fragment erzeugen und das mit einer Fragment Transaction halt replacen. Ganz wichtig ist auch, dass man immer Commit ausführt, also es ist wie eine Transaktion. Dann wird auch erst das Fragment ausgetauscht, ganz nicht. Und eben sollte es sich um ein Smartphone handeln, wird hier ein neuer Intent gestartet mit der entsprechenden Kontext und der entsprechenden Activity. Und entsprechend wird dann halt eben die Event-ID dann angehangen. Hier sieht man auch, dass ich halt im Details Fragment so eine öffentliche Konstante eingefügt habe, um mir eben hier mögliche Tippfehler zu vermeiden, damit der Key halt sozusagen definitiv richtig ist und ich da keine Tippfehler habe. Ja, das war jetzt eigentlich zu der Kommunikation mit Fragments, also wie man das generell handelt. Layouts kann man sich dann ganz einfach über den Ressourcenordner anlegen. Wobei ich halt hier, das ist einmal Layout Large und Landscape. Da muss man halt darauf achten, dass man nicht nach der API-Version geht, also ob es sich um ein Tablet handelt oder nicht. Das hat halt Google auch immer darauf hingewiesen, sondern eher nach der Größe des Displays geht. Und entsprechend habe ich dann hier meine ganzen anderen Layouts. Genau, das wäre halt die Details Fragment nochmal gewesen, wo es halt Details Activity durch. Dem auch wichtig drauf zu achten ist, dass man hier von Fragment Activities her hat. Ne? Also wenn man unter der Version 3.0 ist. Ja, komme ich schon zum Thema Loaders. Einmal die Vorteile von Loaders ist halt, dass sie ihre Aufgabe im Hintergrund verrichten. Zum Beispiel große Datenbankanfragen blockieren halt den Device-Red. Das ist halt sehr problematisch und ich glaube auch Netzwerkanfragen auch. Und da muss man zum Beispiel auch darauf achten, dass seit Android 4.0 gibt es sogar Network Exceptions, wenn man Netzwerkverbindungen im Device-Red aufbaut.
Seit 3 sogar schon.
Seit 3 sogar schon. Das ist mir auch erst irgendwie jetzt so ein E-Student-Projekt aufgefallen, das ich vorher auch nicht.
Allerdings auch nur, wenn du gegen API-Level ab 3 kompilierst.
Das würde ich sowieso immer empfehlen, das neueste API-Level zu nehmen und dass man selber dafür sorgt, dass man halt, wenn man nach unten hin noch gehen will, dass man das supportet und nicht als Target API-Level eben 2.2 noch nimmt. Was man dann nämlich auch findet, ist dann auf einmal, dass sowas wie Managed Query, was man in der Activity findet, ist auf einmal deprecated. Das ist darauf zurückzuführen, dass die sagen, bitte benutzt sogenannte Cursor Loader. Und der Vorteil von diesen Cursor Loadern ist eben auch, dass sie sich automatisch uploaden, also updaten. die registrieren halt von sich selbst einen Content-Server und rufen halt sobald sich halt Daten verändert haben in den Daten. Weiterer Vorteil ist halt, dass sie durch den Loader Manager, der halt übergreifend über eine Applikation ist, verwaltet werden und sind sowohl in Activities und Fragments verfügbar, wenn man höher der Handicap ist. Ansonsten muss man eben probieren, irgendwelche Comment Libraries zu verwenden. Worauf ich halt immer am meisten stoße, ist dann, will ich eine Map Activity noch benutzen. Ich würde gerne diese Loader benutzen. Und das ist halt manchmal noch so ein bisschen tragisch. Aber ich glaube, von Action by Sherlock gibt es auch ein Google Maps Plugin, was man benutzen kann. Und dann kann man auch die Loaders entsprechend verwenden. Was man dann darauf achten muss, ist, dass man eben das Loader Manager Callback Interface implementiert. Und genau, das gibt uns 4 Methoden. Also hier habe ich jetzt mal ein Beispiel genommen, wo ich einen Loader Callbacks implementiere und einen Cursor zurückbekomme. Also ich mache einen Aufruf auf die Datenbank. Und ich habe dann entsprechend diese 3 Methoden, einmal on Create, on Load Finish und on Load Reset. In den Beispielcodes, die ich bis jetzt gesehen habe und die ich bis jetzt verwendet habe, wurde on Loader Reset noch nie benutzt. Google sagt auch in den Beispielen, ja, lass das leer. Was dann halt so ein ganz typischer Fall ist on Load Finish, ist, dass man eine List-View hat, auf die ein Cursor-Adapter, der die Daten entsprechend verarbeitet und darstellt, in der List-View angelegt ist und gesetzt ist und dass man dem Adapter, nicht dem List-View, sondern dem Adapter sagt, dass man nur noch einmal den Cursor austauschen möchte und der sich dann entsprechend neu wieder aufbaut. Das Aufrufen ist bei so einem Cursor-Loader eigentlich recht einfach. Man sagt einfach hier New Cursor-Loader, übergibt hier den Kontext, die Base-URI, also das sind diese URIs, die man auch zu Content-Providern hat, also wenn man die schon mal benutzt hat. Die Projection, da stehen dann drin, welche Spalten man haben möchte. Selections sind dann sowas wie Where-Klauseln in SQL-Statements. Und was danach kommt, ist noch einmal Selection Arts, also das kennt man zum Beispiel aus gleich Fragezeichen, was den Vorteil hat, dass Telefonnummern, die ein Plus haben, wo das Plus dann nicht abgestimmt wird. Und dann kann man noch ein entsprechendes Sort-Over abgeben. Ein ganz kleines Beispiel dazu. Genau, hier habe ich es auch gemacht. Genau. Da habe ich halt hier einmal das Interface implementiert. Entsprechend die Methoden habe ich einmal hier. Das ist halt, dass wenn der Loader erzeugt wird, dass ich halt als Base URI habe Dates Content URI. Hier hole ich mir halt alle Dates zurück, der ist aus der Datenbank, deswegen möchte ich ja keine Where-Klausel haben. Und sagt dann eben auch entsprechend den Selection Arcs, das Analysis und der Sort Over auch. Und deswegen hier ist das dann ein bisschen größer. Das ist dann halt das hier on Load Finish, wo ich mir eine Array-Liste anlege mit Strings und dann eigentlich nur noch den Cursor durchgehe und jedes Datum der Array-Liste zufüge. Und entsprechend dann noch einen View-Pager, um das durchzuswipen und oben den Textdiagramm anzuzeigen. Als kleines Gimmick habe ich dann hier noch sowas wie, wenn jetzt die Kriminale begonnen hat, dass ich halt zu der entsprechenden Page springe. In die Page an. Das war es eigentlich schon soweit zu den Loadern. Was man dazu noch macht oder kann, ist, es gibt noch Async-Task-Loader, die ersetzen halt bald, denke ich mal, die Async-Tasks, also um Sachen im Hintergrund auszuführen. Weil das Schöne ist einfach, dass man keine Activity mehr in den Task übergeben muss, um dann aus dem Task heraus zu sagen, ich bin jetzt fertig, dafür habe ich ja jetzt dieses Interface, was halt entsprechend gefeuert wird mit den Events. Und der zweite Vorteil ist auch, dass ich halt hier mein Loader Manager noch eine ID übergebe. Hier könnte ich dann noch Bundles übergeben, also wie Extras, auch wie man es bei Intents kennt. Und eben noch sage, welche Klasse jetzt dafür zuständig ist, eben die Events zu verarbeiten, hier der entsprechende Cursor-Loader dann eben feuern, in welche Klasse die entsprechenden Events feuern soll. Vorteil ist das Ganze daran, dass wenn man sein Handy hin und her bewegt, hat man zum Beispiel das Problem, wenn man nicht darauf achtet, dass man auf seinen Asm-Task zum Beispiel hätte beenden müssen. In der On-Stop oder On-Destroy. Und das muss man eben bei diesen Loadern eben nicht mehr machen, weil die von diesem Loader-Manager eben entsprechend gehandelt werden und der entsprechend merkt, dass wenn dieser Loader schon mal da ist, dann braucht ihr den nicht nochmal neu initialisieren und nicht nochmal neu starten. Also das ist ein ganz klarer Vorteil davon. Und selbst Android sagt zum Beispiel in der Dokumentation, dass man, wenn man Asm-Tasten benutzt, dass man darauf achten soll, dass man die auch vernünftig aufbaut und verweisen auch nur auf eine Framed Application von einem anderen Anbieter. Ja, das war's eigentlich so, was ich vorstelle.
Wie viel Zeit hast du jetzt investiert in die App?
Ich glaube doch schon 3 Wochen bestimmt. Okay. Weil ich musste halt auch noch ein Backend dahinter aufbauen, wo die Kriminale ihre Daten eintragen konnten. Das war ein sehr einfaches Backend.
Was läuft das?
Das Backend läuft auf PHP und MySQL und als Framework habe ich Codeignite benutzt.
Ach, hast du irgendwas bei Google Plus dazu gepostet?
Ja, genau. Das ging dann auch relativ fix, innerhalb, glaube ich, 3 bis 5 Tagen oder so, wenn man es einfach verstanden hat, das Prinzip. Aber so kleine Datenbanken kann man auch ganz schnell. Ja. Ich wollte zuerst App Engine benutzen, weil ich dann dachte, ja, dann kann ich auch schön C2DM solche Späße machen.
Das kannst du mit Armstrong auch.
Ja, gut, aber dann, ich dachte, die Anwendung ist eigentlich sau einfach, weil du hast ein Plugin, Big Brother oder so heißt es ja, mit App Engine und Android.
Admins haben gesagt, nee. Unsere Admins haben gesagt, nein.
Nee, keiner hat das gesagt. Aber dann habe ich mir einmal so ein bisschen in der App Engine eingelesen und dachte so, so viel verstehst du eigentlich doch noch nicht mit Gewit und also. Ja.
Muss ja nicht benutzen.
Nee, aber
genau, das ist das Problem an diesem Beispiel Plugin-Ding. Da hast so viel Grid mit drin.
Ja, wenn du eine App Engine vernünftig benutzen willst, dann benutzt du, denke ich mal, Gewit, weil dann benutzt du keine Reite.
Grid brauchst du für Mobile-Applikationen eigentlich nicht.
Nee, aber
die benutzen da den RPC von Grid.
Ja, und ich brauche ja zum Beispiel auch noch ein Interface für die Leute von der Bremenade.
Ja, das brauchst du aber eh.
Und das will ich ja aber nicht in HTTP unbedingt. HTML schreiben.
Du hast
wenn das schon
so ein
mit
Interface oder nicht?
Ja, jetzt mittlerweile, das ist auch so simpel.
Ja, aber das kannst du auch benutzen, wenn du C2DM benutzt.
Ja, klar. Aber das war mir dann
musst du nicht diesen Grid-Scheiß benutzen.
Ja.
Ich habe in der Hackerspace-App auch C2DM eingebaut. Kannst du ja machen.
Ja. Außerdem fand ich das sehr gut, was sie da gemacht haben mit ihren APC-Calls. Dass man da innerhalb von 3 Minuten eigentlich hinkriegt, wenn man es vernünftig. Wenn man es schon kann und weiß, wie es funktioniert. Zumindest das in der
schon so aus. C2DM ohne diese APC-Calls gemacht. Und du musst einfach nur mal wissen, wie das genau funktioniert. Und das war im Endeffekt, ich habe jetzt zwar ein bisschen rumprobiert zum Schluss, aber wenn ich das normal machen würde, wäre das eine Sache von einer halben Stunde. Also halt, wie als runter zu schreiben. Ne?
Ja.
Da wäre wahrscheinlich der meiste Teil noch so zu überlegen.
Ja. Ansonsten habe ich halt für die App knapp 2 bis 3 Wochen gebraucht. Gut, mit manchen Pausen da drin, aber ich wollte halt darauf achten, dass ich halt auch mal ein vernünftiges Tablet-Design mache und eben auch die ganzen Support-Libraries verwende. Ja. Ich habe ja hier nicht nur eine Support-Library, sondern
das haben wir V4 und V7, ne? Irgendwie, oder was ist das?
Was ist das zweite?
Action-Darstellung, das ist Easy Facebook,
okay.
SDK und dann habe ich noch Jackson. zum Parsen von JSON. Also, wen das interessiert, kann ich so kurz sagen.
Warum nimmst du Jackson? Also Sven hat das auch genommen, aber...
Weil es sau einfach ist. Du hast halt hier dein Model.
So Annotations oder...
Ach so, Annotations machst du das natürlich. Und machst dir noch ein... Nee, nicht mal einen Jackson, doch einen JSON Creator.
Ja.
So, das war der erste Schritt. Im zweiten Schritt sagst du... Hast du hier entsprechend ein Object Mapper.
Kannst du das mal performancemäßig in welchen zu JSON auch? Weil wenn du da Reflection hast, wenn er da Annotations hat,
der wird sicherlich Reflections benutzen, ja.
Sven hat da einiges drüber erzählt, also der normale, also der eingebaute soll relativ langsam sein. Und Jackson soll auf jeden Fall schneller sein.
Ja, und hier sagst du einfach nur noch, ich gebe mir eine Liste zurück mit dem Typ von Date. Und das war's. Also das ist echt einfach. Und deswegen habe ich das benutzt und ich habe das schon vorher mal benutzt und fand das halt echt gut.
Hängt natürlich auch immer davon ab, was du machst. Ne?
Ja, klar.
Du hast jetzt ja nicht Millionen von Daten, die da runterkommen.
Ja. Aber ich wollte es auch nicht händisch machen, also ich wollte mir keinen eigenen Parser dafür schreiben.
Nee, kann ich verstehen.
Ja, mit JSON ist ja eingebaut. Also,
ja gut, aber trotzdem, ich meine, das sind jetzt 3 Zeilen.
ja, ich weiß schon.
Und die Annotations.
Ich habe es in meiner App gemacht. Und,
ja.
Stimmt schon.
Ein Parser wäre mir dann doch zu viel Arbeit gewesen.
Also ist es ja nie, wenn du da so ein kleines JSON-Ding auseinander.
Ja, gut. Ja, was heißt klein? Also es sind 100, gut, das ist halt immer noch ein Array mit 100 Elementen oder so, oder was?
Ja, aber
Ja, natürlich sind es immer die gleichen Elemente.
eine scheiße Schleife, das sind auch 2, 3 Zeilen.
Ja, aber du musst halt
Ja, aber guck mal,
das
das
sein,
ist
dass deine App irgendwann wächst, ne? Und dann
Genau.
hast du auf einmal dann noch mehr Daten.
Ja.
Ich finde es schon
Ja.
cool. Also beim
Ich finde das auch
Eisgeil haben wir
cool.
das auch so gemacht, dass wir das immer so auseinanderflicken, dass wir wie so ein...
Ich meine, da musst du dir auch
Da
mal,
haben wir noch mehr gemacht.
wenn du die Annotations in Frage stellst, weiß ich nicht, wie das Green Rollout da ist, oder wegen darum. Hier ist mal, wenn du da dein Models aufmachst.
Ja, nein.
Nein. Wir haben einen Code-Generator, der die Klassen generiert und dann werden wir
Okay. Weil das kostet ja auch Zeit, wenn du dir ein Objekt aus der Datenbank dir anlegst. Und dann ein Array-List-Adapter dir schreibst. Der ist ja deutlich aufwendiger, weil du über Objekte gehst, als wenn du über einen Cursor gehst.
Also er geht über den Cursor. Genau.
Okay, weil du dein Beispiel hast, durch meine Array-List angelegt. Du hast dir erst die Objekte
Ja,
rausgesucht.
ich habe das gemacht, was mir am schnellsten in den Kopf gekommen ist.
Ja. Ja, genau. Also was man problematisch sagen muss, ist bei diesem Lowdown, zumindest meiner Meinung nach, ist, dass du zwangsweise einen Content-Provider benötigst. Und Content-Provider sind eigentlich dafür da, zumindest auf Dokumentation, deine Daten anderen Apps zur Verfügung zu stellen. Und das widerspricht eigentlich dann so ein bisschen meiner Vorstellung, wenn ich nur eine eigene Datenbank habe, sozusagen ja, Cursor-Loaders zu bewegen.
Aber vor ein paar Wochen eine richtig coole Diskussion geworden.
Ja, das glaube ich, dass einige.
Von wegen Content Provider, Cursor,
Ja.
Schlag mich groß, ORM Mapper.
Ja. Den brauchst du halt zwangsweise eben diesen Content Provider, um diesen Cursor Loader eben zu verwenden. Weil der eben nur mit so einer Base funktioniert. Genau, was hatte ich noch benutzt an Libraries? Das war dann doch schon weg.
Aber das ist nicht irgendwie Maven oder sowas benutzt.
Nee. Das haben wir einmal ausprobiert. Das ist unser Bachelor-Projekt, Maven einzubinden. Bei einmal zusammen funktioniert zu bauen, bei mir hat es dann nicht mehr funktioniert. Dann haben wir gesagt, ja komm, wir schmeißen den Kram weg. Und wenn du nämlich Android-Projekte über die Command-Line baust, hast du auch automatisch einen ARM-File. Wenn es dir nur darum geht, dass du ein Bildtool brauchst, was du zum Beispiel auf einem Hudson-Server oder so, auf einem Bildserver starten kannst.
Ja.
Also wenn es dir um solche Sachen geht, dann reicht eigentlich auch Athos.
Was hast du so an Tests geschrieben? Hast du überhaupt welche geschrieben?
Ja.
Dokumentiert oder auch nicht.
Das ist so ein bisschen das Ding, was ich momentan auch das Problem habe. Ich habe noch nie wirklich ein Testprojekt für Android geschrieben.
Da kannst du dich auch an Sven wenden.
Ja?
Ja. Er hat Extremtesting.
Ja?
Echt?
Cool.
Er hat auch für sein Projekt hat er glaube ich, 6 Projekte angelegt insgesamt. Also ein Testprojekt, ein Datenprojekt, hier ein Projekt.
Warum machst du dich dann, ne?
Ja,
Gerne. Ja, ansonsten habe ich halt noch Action oder Shadow verwendet, Viewpage Indicator und die Jack Morton Hänsel und Gretel.
Was war das jetzt genau?
Das ist so eine Breadcrumb, die du, wenn du es auf dem Tablet startest, müsstest du die haben, wenn du dir Favoriten angelegt hast und dann mal auf einen der Favoriten klickst.
Robojuice kann ich noch empfehlen.
Ja, für die Tendency.
Und da kannst du testen. Das wäre echt geil, vor allem wenn du auf die ganz viele Elemente auf deiner Seite hast und du willst immer mit Find by ID. Das passt, dann hast du nur so einen Ausdruck.
Ja.
Und dann kannst du mit Robojuice schreibst du, machst du einfach nach dem Gut von dem Typ was in Textview oder so, schreibst du vor, irgendeine Annotation und da drin die RID.
Ja.
Und dann startet der Activity und das steht da drin. Das Objekt ist nicht geholt und übersichtlich aus. Du hast einen Find by.
Ja. Was, genau, was ich vielleicht noch zeigen möchte, aber ich denke mal, das kennt man von meiner.
Kito benutzt Sven zum Testen. Er sagt, das war ein Krampf. Weil das alles irgendwie neue Versionen rausgekommen sind, die nicht dokumentiert sind, also die anders verhalten als dokumentiert sind.
Genau, was ich halt noch verwendet habe in so einem Adapter ist so ein View-Holder-Player. Der Vorteil daran ist, dass man einmalig die ganzen XML ausliest, weil das ziemlich teuer ist. Also XML auslesen ist ja, der passt, macht nichts anderes als die zu parsen.
Ja.
Ein Geschwindigkeitsvorteil ist schon mal, wenn man dieses View-Objekt wiederverwendet. Ja, aber teilweise muss man sucht man trotzdem noch ein Find View nach den entsprechenden einzelnen Views. Und deswegen habe ich mir halt so ein Event View oder Pattern geschrieben, was guckt, ob eben mit diesem Get Tagged, ob das entsprechend in dem View vorhanden ist. Und wenn ja, dann kann ich direkt entsprechend hier meine Werte da reinschreiben. Beziehungsweise hier auch. Ich würde gerne mal wissen, also laut 2 Google-Entwicklern soll es ja ziemlich Performance bringen. Bisher war es, also beim Scoren, ja. Weil du eben dieses ganze XML geparsen hast.
Das muss ich auch mal.
Mir ist das auch nicht so, also gut, ich habe auch nicht so viele Daten, um das zu testen. Oder vielleicht nicht so ein langsames Handy, wo man das merkt. Soll aber eigentlich ziemlich viel
gepasst.
Das sind halt die 4 Sachen. Die 4 Sachen, so holst du dir daraus. Die 4 IDs. Also es sind 2 Textfields und 2 Machines.
Achso, und das dauert lange.
Und das soll ziemlich lange dauern, ja. Weil du eine ganze richtige halt I/O-Operation hast und nochmal das ganze XML durchgehst.
Ah, okay.
Ja, das Find View by ID und XML ist vielleicht sehr, sehr toll.
Ja.
Das kriege ich auch mal vorgestellt zu machen. Nicht in Listings.
Ja.
Also da nur in diesem
Genau. Deswegen mache ich ja einmal kurz, lege ich mir halt so ein View-Holder-Pattern an und ganz unten so, was ist das schon ein bisschen mehr? Da weiß ich auch gar nicht genau, ob das alles so gesund ist. Also Get Raw will sich daraus holen. Genau, setzt man einfach das Tag und packt da sein View-Holder-Pattern oder sein View-Holder-Objekt rein. Und daraus
Ja, und da hält er sich dann quasi.
genau die IDs vor.
Ja.
Man kann natürlich noch viel mehr in so ein Objekt reinschreiben. Ne? Also was wahrscheinlich, was ich zum Beispiel hätte machen können, wäre mir immer diesen Column-Index, den hole ich mir jedes Mal auch mal raus. Den hätte ich mir jetzt zum Beispiel auch noch da reinschreiben können, also nicht Catcher oder sowas.
Wo ist die Summe in der Klasse?
Das ist in dem Adapter. Das ist eine Liste, ein Subcursor-Adapter. Und dann habe ich einfach als Public, weil ich glaube ich irgendwo anders nochmal darauf zuwerfen muss, habe ich es halt öffentlich gemacht. Du musst nicht immer auf dieses View-Holder-Pattern darauf zuwerfen. Ah genau, ich muss das machen wegen hier dieser Event-ID. Dann hole ich mir diese Event-ID nämlich auch direkt aus dem View-Holder-Pattern raus, wenn der da drauf klickt. Zeigen.
Aber das würde ich doch über die alten Menschen machen.
Nee, die haben andere IDs. Die haben andere IDs und zwar aus dem Grund, weil die IDs übernimmt, die auf dem Server sind.
Ja, aber
Und wenn die im Hintergrund, also im Backend, Daten löschen, werden die nicht wirklich gelöscht, sondern es wird halt nur ein Flag gesetzt, damit ich weiß, dass ich die in meiner Datenbank, also in meiner S3-Datenbank löschen kann. Und somit übernehme ich dann einfach gleich die IDs, die da sind, entsprechend.
Ja, aber du kannst doch in dem Adapter sagen, dass er für Get Item ID diese Event-ID wiedergegeben hat.
Ja gut, das stimmt. Das hätte ich